Okay. What we're going to talk about is a light meter, and specifically a flash meter. The little ball on here, the ambient flash meter, also light meter, is designed specifically for using ambient or light falling on the subject rather than reflected from. When you use a camera meter, you're using light that's reflected from. So let's show you quickly what that means. When you put your camera, especially on spot metering, when you spot meter it, you're going to get a reading. Many people think that this reading is what you're supposed to shoot it at. No, it's just a reading. The light meter is a measuring tool. It's just like cooking. If you read the recipe, it says add 1 cup of sugar. Well, you may like 1.25 cups of sugar. Somebody else might say, that's too sweet, I'm going to put 3/4 of sugar in there. That's fine. That's all a light meter does. We use it to take a reading. That reading gives us information about how powerful the light is falling on our subject at a given ISO and or shutter speed. If you use a reflected light meter and you put the center point on something, it will tell you what the exposure is to make it middle gray. So if you're at a wedding, I'll just creep in over here on the side here. If you're at a wedding and you put your light meter in your camera on the bride's dress, the white bride's dress, it will make the white bride's dress this color. If you follow the instructions of the meter. If you say, well, this is the light meter reading, I'm going to shoot it at this reading. Okay, you're going to turn that white dress into middle gray. And when you put the light meter on the groom in a black tux, you're going to take his black tux and make it middle gray. Because what it's telling you, that reflected light meter, is this thing is reflecting light back, and in order to make it middle gray, use this exposure. Always middle gray. So the best thing to do when you're out shooting with your camera meter is to find something that's middle gray or middle luminance that you want. For instance, a blue sky is very often this middle gray. The inside of a Caucasian hand is middle gray +1. The inside of a Hispanic or African hand would be this on. You can use grass, a green grass, place it at middle gray. That's why when you hear me talking about placing exposure, that's what I'm talking about. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to make that mountain over there be middle gray, or I'm going to make it be white. Now, if I put my light meter on that white bridal gown and it says 5.6 at 1/100th of a second, I know that 5.6 at 100th of a second is going to give me this. So I shoot it at 5.6, 4, 2.8. I shoot it at 2.8, it comes out this. The light meter said 5.6. If I put the light meter on my camera on the tux, what's it going to say? Who knows?
I don't know.
It's going to say 11.
Oh.
It's going to say 11. 11, so we go back to 8, 5.6. I'm sorry. No, it's not going to say 11. I forgot where I started. I said 4, right? Or 5.6 for this? Yes.
2.8.
4, 2.8. So if I put it on the tux, it's going to say 5.6. And it's going to make the tux this color. But I'm going to shoot it at 11. 5.6, 8, 11. 2 stops under, 2 stops over, middle gray. And by doing that, you can place your exposure where you want it. So if you're looking at, for instance, this shot of me, I've got heavy side light coming from a window over here, which I can diminish a little bit like that. But I've got heavy side light coming from this side. If you metered me on this side, it would say, well, it would say 2.8 at 100th of a second, for instance. But if you shoot it at 2.8 at 100th of a second, what are you going to get?
Gray.
It's going to get dark, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Take it down 2 stops. So we have to be very careful where we point our meter. And then we have to take that information and use it. So if I'm sitting here and I want to use my light meter in my camera, I'm probably going to meter that chair. That looks like pretty much middle gray. I might meter that area above me here. That looks like middle gray. I might even meter this shadow side of me and let that go middle gray, knowing that if I increase exposure, I'm going to make that middle gray go lighter, and if I decrease exposure, I'm going to make it go darker. Everything goes darker, everything goes lighter, because we're not just dealing with that one area. So a long way of saying using your camera meter is very tricky. You've got to really, really understand where you want to place that exposure. What you put your meter on and measure is a huge decision on your part. You can put your meters, I mean, if you have fancy cameras, we all have fancy cameras, you can put it on matrix or something, and then the camera goes dot, 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 dot. Well, that's the highest and that's the lowest, so we're going to go in the middle and make that. And quite honestly, they're pretty darn close. Pretty darn close to making an okay picture, because the computer that's in the camera is so sophisticated now. So this is our choice. When you use a handheld meter, and you can put a device on here that makes it a reflected meter if you want, most of the time, 90%, 95%, maybe, you know, closer to 99% of the time, you're using this ball, this dome. Now, this measures the light falling on me. So the dome faces towards the camera. So if the dome is facing towards the camera and the light's falling on me, it says 5.6 at 1/100th of a second would be the perfect exposure for middle gray if one was here in the picture. I don't know if one's there or not. It's just giving me the exposure. Does that make sense, everybody?
And so that's what. So that measurement is what we would use, because
Yes.
you know how you say on the camera, we can adjust to what we want, but then if we're using the meter, then we use whatever the meter says.
Well, yes. Within
if we want to.
You know, you've got a little bit of leeway. You might want to make it a little bit darker, a little bit lighter, but this is giving you a perfect middle gray exposure.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't know if there's middle gray in the picture. It's just saying if there is, this is the exposure. Okay? So it's measuring the amount of light falling on there. It is also imperative to understand that the ball, and this is a perfect illustration, the ball is getting light on it exactly like my face is, correct? Half lit, half in shadow, half lit, half in shadow. So it's taking a really comprehensive reading of what's going to work here. I would say that in 99% of the cases, this light, this ball, you aim it at your camera. Always aim it at your camera and take a reading. Now, if I'm being backlit, you know, there's a big sun behind me, and you put it up here, and a little bit of sun is hitting that ball, what's it going to do?
It's
gonna
gonna make you darker.
exactly. It's gonna alter. It's gonna say, well, there's a lot of light here, but I'm not seeing any light on me. There's no light on me. It's just zooming past and hitting the ball. So when I use a light meter, I put it under the chin, right here. I don't put it in front of them, and I don't put it on the side of them. Two major reasons. I don't put it in front of them because I just changed my inverse square law. I've just moved it in front. Now you can be very, very careful and say, okay, well, I'm going to put it right here, and that's going to be great. Okay, fine. You're pretty close then. But most people get sloppy and they put it, out here. They go, okay, I'm going to take a reading out here. Well, that's 6 inches. You just changed the inverse square law. If the light's only 2 feet away, you just fundamentally changed how powerful the light is going to be because you're 6 inches away from the subject. Are we all clear on that? So I put it right here under the chin, so the ball is at the same plane that the light's hitting.
So here's a really
go ahead.
Really stupid question because I don't understand. So it gets that reading, and that's how you set your lights. That's where if it measures 5.6, what are you setting?
That's your camera setting.
Okay.
So on your meter, you have a place to set the ISO and the shutter speed if you're using natural light. So you set the shutter speed for, let's say, 1/100th of a second. Your ISO is at 100. You put the ball under my chin and you push the button. And it takes a reading. And it gives you the aperture. I might say 5.6 or 2.8. Let's see what we got here.
And is that what you normally ask your meter to do, or do you want him to tell you the ISO, or do you? Because you know how you can adjust.
No, it can't tell you the ISO.
Oh.
There's no input for that. You have to set the ISO because all it's doing is reading the power of the light based on the ISO that you've given it.
Okay. So if I put the ISO, it'll tell me the aperture or the time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And one of those you're going to set. You're going to have to make a choice. So if let's say you put it up here and you click it and you've got it set at ISO 1600 and it says F16 at a 200th of a second. Well, if you don't want to shoot it at F16 at 200th of a second, now you have to go, okay, so if it's F16 at 200th of a second, you start dialing your shutter speed up to 400, and now it's 11. Then you go to 800, now it's 8. Then you go to 1600, now it's 5.6. The aperture will change as you change the shutter speed because it's always going to give you X. Exposure is ISO aperture shutter speed equals X.
And what's the best thing to ask the meter to give you? To give you the aperture or the exposure?
Aperture or shutter speed?
I mean, that. Either aperture or shutter speed.
9 times out of 10 when I'm working, I'm looking for aperture.
Okay.
However, if you were photographing ice skaters, shutter speed might be the most important thing on your mind, right?
Right.
Right. So if you need a quick shutter or a slow shutter, like you want to get the water flowing over a waterfall, you take the reading and then as you're dialing your shutter speed down, your aperture is going up. Mm-hmm. But mostly I put my ISO in, and it's generally locked on 100 because that's generally what I use. I put my ISO in, I set my shutter speed to something that I know is reasonable, like 80th of a second or 100th of a second, then I take a reading.
Okay.
And then I go, okay, well, that reading says 5.6 and I want to shoot it at 2.8. I just dial my shutter speed until it says 2.8. And I look at the shutter speed and it says, we're getting feedback from somebody.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean,
So it doesn't give you exposure necessarily, Cody. In other words, it doesn't know what it doesn't know. It's a handheld meter. You have to input your ISO, start with a shutter speed that sounds reasonable to you, and then go for your aperture. Why do you think I choose aperture as the most important thing when I'm working like this? Who knows?
Depth of field.
Depth of field, because depth of field is the number one thing that will affect the look of my image. An image, a portrait taken at an 80th of a second or 125th of a second or 200th of a second may not have any difference at all because it's the subject still. But what's going to change is the aperture. The depth of field is going to be a visible part of that image. So I start there. Now, let's picture something with in your head, okay? I'm your subject, and I'm standing on a hill across a creek from you, backlit. The sun is behind me. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're standing on another hill, and you've got your light meter in your hand. Do you walk down the hill, cross the creek, go up the hill, and stick this thing under my chin and take a meter reading?
I don't think it matters, does it? Because you have the sun behind you, so you're going to be dark anyway.
No. We're still going to get a meter reading. All you're going to do is turn around and put the sun behind you, right?
Oh, duh.
Take a meter reading.
Okay.
There's no difference between me on the other side of that hill and you standing there if we're backlit to take a meter reading.
That's a trick question.
I've seen photographers walk over underneath somebody's chin, and I just stand there and I just go.
That would have been me. That was a trick question.
It's the same light. So that's the thing. So now the meter, notice the ball is half lit just like my face. What happens if we turn the meter and do this? Let's get the light. Let's measure the light falling on old Don here. Boom. What's going to happen? It's not going to be an accurate reading, is it?
Mm-mm.
Because it's not falling the same way. That's why we have the dome. If the dome didn't matter, it'd just be a flat disc, right? Right? But it matters. However, it does give us one other thing that we can use, and that's the ratio. So I can say, okay, that's f8 and that's f4. That's a 2-stop difference. I now have 4:1 ratio. Now, if I go in the middle, it's going to be somewhere in the middle, probably a little towards the high side, but somewhere in the middle. When I take the picture, I get that. But I have that 2:1 ratio. Does that matter? Sometimes it doesn't matter. If you're doing a one-off portrait of somebody, it doesn't matter. Does it look good? Then you're really good. Let's just say, though, since we're commercial photographers, not just art photographers, commercial photographers, let's say a pharmaceutical rep calls and says, we need 50 headshots of our pharmaceutical team in Portland. And they all have to match. And oh, by the way, you have to go to 6 different places to make these photographs. So you do the first one and you go, boom, that's f8. Boom, that's f9. And over here, this is f5.6. So 1 1/3 stop ratio, right? Difference, right? 1 1/3. So you get to the next place and you set your lights up. And let's say the space is a little bit more crowded, so your lights are a little bit closer. Okay, no problem. This is now 11. This is now 10. And you place this 1 stop less than that at, who knows, 6.3. And you have the same ratio. Depth of field may be a little bit off, but your ratio is the same. And so when you put them in Lightroom and all those ratios are the same, not the aperture that you shot it, but the ratio between high and low are the same, and you've got no problem. If you don't do that, you may have to sit there and tweak this shot and then tweak that shot and then open up the shadow on this shot, lower the highlight on that shot. If you control your ratios, you can move through the job a whole lot faster. I've seen people say that you don't need a light meter. And I would venture to say they're probably right. You don't need a light meter. You can stand there and chimp it. Just keep popping away. But you can't chimp it into ratios at all. That can't happen. So if you want to match ratios, you can't chimp it. That's not going to happen. And the other thing chimping does is it just wastes time. Just an absolute total waste of time. Why don't you start with at least, let's put it this way, at least this thing's going to get you well within the infield. You're going to tweak it a little bit for your shooting style, or you may find that your Nikon shoots just a little bright, so you just sort of tune it down by taking the meter reading and say, okay, I'm going to tune it down a little bit. That's what I normally did. Because again, I was just using it as a measurement, not to tell me what to shoot it at, but to give me the measurement of what middle gray would be so that I could handle, excuse me, placing my highlights, placing my shadows, and taking my middle gray. Water, by the way. I'm not drinking yet another Polar Pop today. All right, questions?
So when you want to set up the lights, let's say that you're standing there and I want to know, I put my meter at 5.6 1/100th of a second. 5.6 1/100th of a second. No, what am I saying?
So
ISO 100.
Your ISO 100, put a shutter speed of 100.
Yes, and I want it to be 5.6. So I go up to you and I measure you, and you will measure at, no wait. How do you sync the lights with?
Okay, so
how do I get the lights to go to where I want them to go with using the meter?
I make decisions on exactly what I want. So I'm real deliberate. So I like shooting headshots, for instance, at between 4 and 5.6, so that the hair in the back goes a little bit out of focus. It's great shooting them at 2.8. That's really fantastic. If it's a small person or if it's a very young person, I can shoot at 2.8. But if it's just a headshot I'm doing, I want 4 because I want the tip of the nose and the eyes to be in focus. And I like shooting headshots with a long lens. So I've got my long lens problem to deal with because it's going to shorten the depth of field. So I know 4 to 5.6. So I put my light up, and let's say I'm using, I don't know, 2 speed lights and an umbrella maybe, or a speed light and an umbrella, okay? So I put it up, and I have done this before, so I know where to set the light. But let's say I have never done it before. So I put the light up, and I put the strobe on full power, okay? Take the meter, put it under the subject's chin, pop it. At full power into this umbrella, where the umbrella is, it's like 2 feet away from me because I want nice wrapping light, right? Let's say it gives me a f-stop of 11 at full power. I don't want 11. I want 5.6, right? So what do? I've got 2 choices.
Drop your light down by 2 stops.
I can change the power of the light, or I can move the umbrella away. If I move the umbrella away, it changes the look of my portrait. Because where I want the umbrella is really important. I want it here to do that wrapping. If I have to move it way back there to get 5.6, I'm not getting the wrap anymore, right? So I take the full power is, what did I say, F11? Full power is F11. 1/2 power would be F8, and 1/4 power will be F5.6. So I put the strobe on 1/4 power, take another reading, and now it'll say 5.6.
Oh, okay. That's what I could never figure out. Okay.
So that meter gives you that, it gives you a registered metric of the light that you can now adjust. Like I say, you can move the light back too. I mean, that's another way of doing it. Not my preferred way at all. I have Pro Photos that I use over, and I do this so, because they're over there, you can't see them, but I just naturally do that because I'm Italian. I talk like this. Anyway, I've got the Pro Photos, and I can't put the Pro Photo with my soft lighter where I want it because I can't turn it down enough. It's not a matter of not having enough light. It's a matter of these guys only go down 3 stops, and even on the lowest setting, it's too powerful. It's giving me like 8.5 when I get because I like my soft lighter in close because I want soft, beautiful light that wraps around and gives me a real soft transition. So in that particular case, I have only thing I can do is to move it back, or, and this is the or somehow block that light. So I could put a neutral density filter on my camera and say, okay, now I'm going to knock 2 stops of light out of the strobe because I'm going to use this neutral density. I don't like to use neutral density, but I've done it in the past. Well, number one thing, it makes looking through the camera darker. My eyes are old and needing all the light they can get. That's number one. Number two is you're taking a $2,500 lens and putting a $40 piece of glass on the front of it, which inherently makes no sense to me at all. So I don't shoot with filters. I don't have ultraviolet filters or daylight filters or any of those screw-on filters. When I shoot, I put them back on when I pack. They're all on the lenses when I pack them up. And when I'm out, like if I'm, I don't know, Disneyland or something with the kids and I'm stupid enough to take a great big Canon, I'll have it on there. But when I'm shooting, I don't put filters on because, again, it makes me crazy to have a $25 filter on the front of a $2,000 lens. It sort of defeats the purpose. And yeah, I know they're so close and all that blah, blah, blah. But nah, don't do it. I prefer just the glass to be between me and the subject. There's a caveat, by the way, to this. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to be shooting things that are vertical if you're shooting people. However, what if you're shooting food and you've got a light above it? Well, if you're shooting food and you have a light above the set and you turn the meter all the way up like this because the light's above it, isn't that the same as doing this? Right? Because over here I got all the light coming down on me, but that's not how it's hitting the subject. And if the light is straight above me and I'm shooting from an angle, that's not how the light's hitting the subject from my camera viewpoint. So what you do is you tilt the ball towards the camera about 30 or 40 degrees so that the light hitting the ball from the top light or the top backlight hitting the ball is hitting the ball at the same way it's hitting the subject in front of you, whatever that subject is. It's striking it the same way. You're not cheating the exposure by taking a full frontal exposure of that light. That's not how it's hitting your food. It's hitting your food from the back, so half light and half in shadow. Just makes sense.
So that's if you're shooting the camera at an angle, but if you are shooting it directly from above, like right next to the light, do you still do that?
Are you shooting? If your light is right next to the camera, then absolutely you would do that.
Okay. So you basically point it at whatever the camera is.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But when you're shooting top, it's you've got to You got to make sure that that ball is getting the light the same way the subject is getting the light.
At
So
the
if
same
you're
plane.
shooting, if you've got a softbox right next to you and you're shooting straight down, absolutely. You're going to hold it straight up and get that reading. If you've got a window behind you, like this window here, and let's say I'm shooting can you see this? No. I'm going to shoot this
Okay.
thing. This is my subject, and that's the window light. If I do this, that's not quite the same because I'm shooting from over here, right? So I'm going to do this with the meter. Tilt it up a little bit, about 40 degrees. And I'm going to take my exposure reading there. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Can I let you in on a little secret? If you point
Sure.
the ball towards the subject, towards the camera, if you point the ball towards the camera, the dome here, and you've got your lights set up, and you follow what this meter reads, you're going to be right in the middle of the ballpark. There's no way it can be thrown off because it's not reading the subject, it's reading the amount of light falling on the subject. So you get a perfect exposure every time. Even if you, like I say, you might say, well, it's saying 5.6, but I want to open it up just a little bit. Great, open it up a little bit. But you're going to be dead on with those exposures because of the way the ambient light meter works. Make sense, Sarah?
Yep.
Tammy?
Yeah, I'm good. A quick question though.
Sure.
So you've got you're lighting your subject with one light and you want to light the backdrop white. You want to have the light. How do you meter your background?
Okay. If you want, let's say the background. Let's say your background is a light gray. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've got a light on the background, and what you do is you want to measure the light hitting the background. So you put the meter up against the gray wall, and you fire the flash, right?
Towards the camera? Do I meet?
Yeah, towards the camera. Towards the camera.
That's good. Yeah, great.
Towards the camera. So, and you fire the flash, and it says 5.6.
Yep.
Okay. If your exposure 5.6, if that's what you're shooting your subject at, 5.6, what color is the wall going to be?
Gray.
Gray. Middle gray. Because it just nailed it, right? That's what it is.
Exactly.
Well,
I want to bring that exposure down. Yeah.
We want to shoot that wall at what?
Probably about, I don't know, 8.
8 would be one stop. Let's go 11.
6.3. Yeah. 11. Yeah.
11.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a middle gray wall. We want to take it up 2 stops.
Okay. I'm thinking because I use a white backdrop. Yeah. Middle gray.
Oh, if it's a white backdrop, if your subject's 5.6 and your backdrop is here, I would shoot your backdrop no brighter than f8.
No, exactly. Okay.
That is meter it at f8 because I'm still shooting at 5.6.
Yeah.
Right. The light falling on that white wall is f8. Anything more than a stop, and you start losing edges.
Just losing hairs and hair and stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. 2 stops is what? That's the same as what?
11. The
Backlight.
What? Pardon?
The 2 stops is backlight.
Yeah. It starts
so
wrapping
now
around.
your front lights fill because your backlight's vain, and that
Exactly.
Someone like me with silver hair, I'm going to look bald because it's just going to blow through my hair.
Yeah, and I have the problem with blonde. People with blonde, it's kind of a little bit stringy, and it just disappears if it's too bright.
Just
in the
disappears. And that's another reason. Let me ask you this: if you're shooting that on a histogram, can the histogram tell you that your white wall is 2 stops over?
Nope.
This can.
Not. Yeah, I know. So I just usually when I set up my lights, I set myself up and I chimp it for a while. I've got a light meter. I just never use it. I'm going to start using it more.
Well, and the other thing, when people say you don't need a meter, and I kind of agree with them. You don't really need one. You can kind of
necessarily,
chimp it.
No.
But you're also if you're standing there chimping and you got a client there, My feeling is, what the hell did they pay for? Is your expertise,
No.
and you're just sort of like, well, let's guess at this, right?
Yeah. Well, I've done the setup so many times it takes me a few minutes, so it's not that big of a problem. But still, if I want to get the exposure, if I want to get the same exposure, it's a repeat client. I go back and take headshots, and I want the headshots to look the same each time.
Yep.
Which is a good idea. This is why I make a note of how I set my things.
I scribble everything. I measure the distance of the light, how high it was, how high the stool is, all of those things. If I have to do it again. And I have pages and pages and pages of stuff. Many of them very similar,
Exactly.
But that's okay. I'd rather be over safe than not. Now, y'all are smart people. So trust me, after 18 months of using the meter, you're going to start, you're going to set your light up here, and you've got your backlight over here, and you've done it 50 times. Chances are you remember, oh yeah, half power, this is 5/6, and at full power, that's 8 on my background, and and the meter doesn't come out because you're nailing it. I'm not bragging, but I'm going to tell you a story. We were in Singapore. I was in Singapore, and they brought out this brand new Balcar deep dish metal parabolic reflector, 7 feet wide. And it was on its own stand. It had a place for the power pack and everything. And the flash tube came out and shot back into it. It was aiming in. And the guy brings it out, and he's like, this is really cool. And he says, he looks at me and goes, what was that? And he pops the flash. And I stood there for a second, and first part of my brain said, how would I know? And the second part of my brain goes, you know this. You felt that light before. You've seen this light before. I said 7.1. Took his meter, it was 7.1. Because after you do that, do it for as long as a couple of years, and you're constantly aware of it because you're taking the reading, you can start to see the light. I've told the story about Cole Weston. Brett Weston's workshop. When me and this other guy, we pulled our light meters out, and he read us the Riot Act. He said, you're photographers. You deal with light. All you have to think about is the light, and you don't know what the light is. And Brett also used a very colorful guy. If he was out with 3 drunk sailors, they'd be going, dude, watch the language. I mean, it was pretty interesting. And that always stuck with me. So what I would do is I would guess the exposure based on my experience, and I'd back it up with the meter. And pretty soon, you're guessing, and the meter is just confirming instead of going, nah, you missed it by 2 stops. Now, all bets are off for me if I'm in like a dimly lit restaurant or bar or something. I can't read that kind of light. But generally, if it's strobe light or ambient light, I can be within a half stop because I've done it for so long, not because I'm special.
I have a dumb question.
No question is dumb.
So you mentioned the flash a little while ago. Mm-hmm. So I know when we have the lights on, just continuous light, we can measure that light. But how do you measure a flash, like a speed light? All of your meters that you buy today have the flash built into it. They can read flash. So that modeling light you have on there, it's taken into consideration when you make the flash meter. So you hold the flasher, you hold the button down, you fire the flash, and it reads the flash. But when for example, when I do
flash and a setting for daylight, sun, ambient light, and you turn it on flash, and then you make the flash reading. So it's the same thing.
Oh, okay. Because I tried to do that, and I would I would hold the button down, and then I do the flash. But by the time I push the button, there was a reading on it already. So I didn't know there's a flash.
Probably giving you the ambient reading.
Yeah.
So what it's doing.
I was reading only ambient.
Yeah. What these modern flashes do is they take the ambient into consideration when they're giving you your flash. exposure. So you have to be aware of that it's giving you that. And this is a very old meter. This is a very old meter. But even this really old meter still gives me my ambient, little tick where the ambient is and a little tick where the flash is. Because if the ambient is within 2 stops of the flash, it's going to be involved in the shot, right?
Right.
If the ambient's only 1 or 1.5 stops down, then the ambient's involved in the exposure of the picture. And if the ambient's window light, that's maybe no problem. But the ambient's tungsten, then I'm going to add a 1/2 stop of warm tungsten light to my overall exposure. So I look at it and I go, oh, I better fix it. How do I fix it? Now we're really going to challenge the brain. My reading is 5.6 at 100th of a second, ISO 100, and I'm getting 1/4 of that exposure is coming from the ambient tungsten over there. How do I fix it?
Raise the shutter speed.
What's that?
Raise the shutter.
Who's this?
Faster shutter.
Who's
Tammy?
that? Tammy. Tammy's right. Raise the shutter speed. Because that ambient light is only controlled by shutter speed. The flash has nothing to do with shutter speed at all. It's just the flash. Now who's confused? Anyone?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay. Your flash is just the flash. That's it. So when someone's saying take a flash reading at what shutter speed? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's just a flash. The shutter speed matters for the ambient light in the room. I had a student in San Francisco, and this guy got so mad at me, he declared that I was a fraud teaching this, and that shutter speed had everything at all to do with sharpness and flash. And I suppressed my natural instincts, which was to beat him with a 2x4. Just the lovable me. And I said, let me explain it to you. The curtain opens up for like a second. Let's say your shutter speed's on a second. In a dark room, your shutter speed opens up for a second. So it's this distance. The flash goes off right here and it goes pop, and that's it. And then it's dark the rest of the time. So what we did was we turned off all the lights. We set the flash up at full power, F11, on this girl, and we had her shaking her hair like this in the dark. I said, keep shaking, keep shaking. So we opened up the shutter for a 4-second exposure, counted to 2, hit the flash, counted to 2, and the shutter went off. So 4 seconds was the shutter speed. The flash, the speed light went off at full power. And when we pulled the image up, there it was, and every hair was caught. Because all that mattered was the flash. The shutter speed has nothing to do with the flash. The flash duration is generally way shorter than the shutter speed. So they go, well, 250th of a second with my flash will freeze this thing here. Yeah, 250th of a second is like, who cares? That's nothing. The flash duration is 1/1000th of a second happening in the middle of that 1/250th of a second. So shutter speed, however, controls all that light that's ambient. That is, window light, sunlight, daylight, all of that. Let me find out what kind of meters you guys have. Sarah, what kind of meter do you have?
It's a Minolta VF 5F.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You just bought it, right?
No, I bought mine a while ago. I just haven't figured out how to use it.
Okay. Very simple. Real simple. It's kind of like mine. This is a 4.
Yep.
Kind of like mine. You
Turn it on.
got the little slide over here where it says time, guide value, ISO, and F number. Mine is usually on ISO or time. And then when you push the button up here and make the, you push the button, you don't have to hold it down. Just push the button when you're on flash, push the button, make the flash, and there you go. You're good. And you got a little slider right here that's flash. It'll say flash or ambient. That's a little slider right over here. It's the same on yours, I'm sure.
Actually, I think I have a mode button, and it's flipping between ambient, cord, and non-cord.
Right. Non-cord is flash. Cord, you can actually hook the cord up to your flash, and it'll fire your flash from the button.
Oh, okay.
So if you wanted to do that, that's what cord means. My cord does not work anymore because my assistant plugged the cord into the wall socket.
Okay.
That really sucked. There's no repair for these things. Minolta doesn't even support them anymore. So, and I have a second one over there I bought on eBay, and I'm thinking I might buy a third on eBay just to have it, because I've had this meter for 30 plus years. It has never let me down, ever. And anything I've ever wanted to do, from difficult backlight to multiple light situations, it's just great. All right, Tammy, what kind of meter do you have?
It is a Sekonic L308.
Oh, the little black one?
Yeah.
Those are great.
Nifty one.
Those are great. They're just everything you need.
Yep.
Fantastic. Rose, what do you have?
I've got a hand-me-down that might be even older than yours. It's a Minolta 3F.
Oh, that was the version just before this.
Yeah. And
they're great. The only thing the 3F didn't really have that the 4F did was the ability to power the strobe from the cord.
oh, so I can't blow it up by plugging it into a wall.
No, and plugging it in the wall was really a bad idea.
It sounds like. Yeah, I've never actually used this. I have only used a light meter once in a class I took a few months ago, and that's why I'm sitting in here to figure out how to use this thing so I can stop chimping.
Great. Well, I want you guys to use it, even if you go, oh, this is frustrating, and you put it away and you chimp it on, right? Because the more you use it, the more it'll start to make sense to you. Rose, up at Udemy, I have a class on using a light meter.
I started that a couple
Okay.
days ago. Need to finish it.
That will really open your eyes to 90% of what you want to do with a light meter.
I just wanted to say, that what you said a few minutes ago, I thought was really powerful. That you knew that light was 7.1. You knew it was 7.1, and what that sounds to me like is like musicians developing perfect pitch over time.
Very much so.
And that's a great goal. I mean, that's something you can actually aspire to.
And you know this, I am a musician. I've never had perfect pitch, but after 55 years of doing music, if someone goes over and hits a note on the piano, I'm going to be really close.
Right.
I'm not going to say middle C and have it be middle C every time. But if it's middle C, I might say middle C. I might say B. I might say D. But I'm never going to go F sharp. It's never going to happen because I got that now.
And you'll probably play. I'm guessing. I don't know how this works, but if you're jamming, you fall right in, right? I mean, you know which chords to play, and
yeah. You just get that. It just becomes a part of you.
Mm-hmm.
Cody, what kind of strobe do you have?
Strobe?
I mean, flash meter.
Flash. It's a Sekonic LD478DR.
You have a Sekonic 478?
Uh-huh.
Is it a great big black one?
It's black. I don't know if it's big. It's, I don't know.
Bigger than mine, right?
Actually, no, it's about the same. The same size, yeah.
Is it new or used?
I bought it new, but I bought it like 2 years ago, so I don't know if they have other models now. It's called a Lightmaster Pro L478DR.
L478
DR.
Okay. This, ladies and gentlemen, this is like this is like a Rolls Royce of light meters.
Are you kidding me? I cannot use this Rolls Royce.
It has literally everything on it. It has luminance measurement, filtration compensation, cinema frame rate settings.
Yeah, I see a little video thingy.
Crap. This is a Rolls Royce light meter. Okay, so what we're going to do with you, Cody, at some point here coming up soon, we're going to do one of those remote things while you're doing a shoot.
Okay.
And we're going to go through your meter. You are never going to use everything in this light meter. Unless you
Good, because I don't know. They have so many things. I cannot figure it out. I don't know how to.
Well, all you're going to be using basically, what this thing does is it talks to your Pocket Wizards. Do you have Pocket Wizards?
Yes.
Okay, so it talks to your Pocket Wizards. You can fire the Pocket Wizards from your flash meter. So you have to go in, and you can turn them up and down from your pocket meter, from your flash meter.
Do I have to have something in the meter? Because I don't.
No,
I know it says. That's what it says, but I don't know how to use it.
Into it.
Because it still has because I haven't really used it that much because I couldn't figure it out. It says it has a little sticker that says Pocket Wizard technology built in.
Yep.
But I have no idea how to get it to work with my light.
Okay. We're going to figure it out. Even if I have to have you meet me at the studio.
I can do that.
And bring a couple of lights. We'll go down to the studio. We'll set it up. We'll video it so for anyone else who wants to see it, and we'll do like a product shot or something with it, so that we cover what it is you're going to use it for. When you start making video, you have frame rate and shutter angle. This is huge. It's a big deal. And will make your life easier when you do it.
Oh, good. Yeah,
Okay, so,
I'm into easier life.
Yeah.
All right,
Karen,
yeah, let me know. I can do that. That would
Yeah.
be awesome because I really don't know how to do all that stuff.
We will do it just I'm going to say probably maybe 2 weeks from now. Just let it cool off just a little bit more so we can go outside and show you how the ambient and stuff works. Once you play with this meter, or any of you guys play with these meters a little bit, you just won't want to give up not playing with them. They're just really, really a blast. If you haven't taken the time to go see my videos, the class on using a light meter, please go do that. It's not just because I did it. It's really comprehensive. It might be too comprehensive. It might be just a little long-winded because I go over things 2 or 3 times. But I think it's really important, and I think you'll enjoy it, and you'll figure out how to use your flash meter. Karen, what kind do you have?
I'm the one who just ordered the Minolta 4F. So
all right. So you'll have the 4F. So you have the same one as I do. Should be coming in soon?
By the 15th, I think.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I'm still lost.
Oh, we'll get back to you. Hold on. I'm going to tell you something. Who else has one of these Minoltas? Is that Tammy?
Sarah has a Minolta.
Who does?
I
Sarah.
have a Sekonic.
Someone said they had a
Sarah Flannery.
Sarah does?
Yep.
See this little ball here, Sarah?
Yep.
Do not lose it.
Does it come out?
Well, it's supposed to.
Yeah, I just did.
Yeah, you twist it and it comes out.
Yep.
Don't lose it. Put a little piece of tape on it because this little guy here, you can't buy them. I had to buy a whole light meter off eBay just to get the dome for my phone. They are not purchasable. I take that back. I did find one. The guy wanted $65 for it. I bought another Flash Meter 4 for 80. So, okay, Karen, you say you're still lost?
Oh, yeah, until I have it in hand and can play with it, I think. And I need to watch your Udemy.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll do it again.
Good. Thank you for doing this.
No problem. We'll when we do when Cody lives here in the valley, so we can actually get together physically here.
Yeah, you can do it side by side with your meter and hers.
Yeah, and by actually doing a shoot. Now, there's a couple of shoots that I do in that video as well, and I think it'll give you. I mean, it should get you on the road to using it, but we'll sort of refine it a little bit with Cody.
Cool.
All right, very good. Any other questions? Awesome. I will see you guys up on the boards.
Thank you, Don.
Thanks a lot, Don.
Thanks. Stay cool.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Talk to you soon. I'll get this video put up ASAP as well.
Cool.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.